Good morning, kiddos. Happy Friday. It's catch-up day on Digital Learning Days, which means that today's a day for you to get things done that you haven't been able to get done this week, or even from last week, or even from the week before that. If you have NTIs in your progress report, you have plenty of time still to get that stuff in. NTI does not mean we won't take it. NTI means we're still waiting for it. So make sure you get your NTIs filled in. And today's a day to ask questions of your teacher, to ask your teacher to review something, or to just get some work done. Also, please get outside and get some exercise and move around. Being in your house all day long, I know, is not good for your body or your mind. So get out so you can stay healthy. Let's move on to the next chapter of our book. Today, we're going to look at Chapter 10, Salk and Oppenheimer. Remember, Ellie and Grandpa Melvin were trying to set up the laboratory in the garage, and Mom pulled up from work at school as the theater teacher and was like, nope, you are not using my garage because I can't park outside because birds will poop on my car. So now they don't have a laboratory. So let's see what happens with Ellie and Grandpa Melvin. I'm supposed to do a report on a famous historical figure, but instead of choosing from the likely suspects, William Shakespeare, Thomas Jefferson, Harriet Tubman, I used my computer to look up the names my grandfather's been batting around: Galileo, Jonas Salk, Robert Oppenheimer. Galileo's picture is an old oil painting, like something that should be hanging in the De Young Museum in San Francisco. He's dressed like he's in a Shakespeare play and doesn't even seem like a real person. But Salk and Oppenheimer are interesting. Salk looks exactly the way that you would imagine a scientist looking. Glasses, white lab coat, holding test tubes, nerdy in general. Oppenheimer is more unexpected. He's handsome with piercing eyes. He stares broodingly into the camera like an old Hollywood actor. In one shot, he's wearing a hat and has a cigarette dangling from his mouth. I can almost imagine my dad playing his part in a movie. Also, Oppenheimer has a local connection to the Bay Area. He taught at the University of California at Berkeley. My mom's always raving about the theater program there. I can't help but notice the similarity between the two men. They were both involved in wars where science played a big part in the outcome. Jonas Salk and the war on polio, Oppenheimer and World War II. Salk found a vaccine that prevented polio, and Oppenheimer helped create the bombs that were dropped on Japan that ended the war. Oppenheimer's story especially seems like a Hollywood movie. The race against the Germans to create the bomb first. And then there's the photo of one of the bombs exploding with a big mushroom cloud. There's a quote from Oppenheimer, his reaction to the successful testing of the atomic bomb. "We knew the world would not be the same. A few people laughed. A few people cried. Most people were silent." I understand how he felt. Like when my grandfather walked through the front door looking like a teenager. Science fiction becoming reality. My mom talks about how she couldn't even have imagined cell phones when she was a kid, and now everyone has them. Except me, of course. My parents say I'm too young. My grandfather comes into my bedroom without knocking. He freezes when he sees the handprints. "Good grief, what happened to your walls?" "They're supposed to look that way," I explain. "That's a style? Whatever happened to a nice wallpaper?" He points to his face. He's totally breaking out. He's got zits on his forehead and a big red one on his chin. "Do you have acne cream?" "There's some in my bathroom," I tell him, and he follows me in. "I can't believe I'm 76 years old and I'm dealing with pimples again," he grumbles. I dig through a drawer, find a tube, and hand it to him. He smears some cream on his zits. Maybe next time I'll find a cure for acne. We ordered Chinese takeout again for dinner. My mom wanted to order sushi, but my grandfather said the person who has the most degrees should get to choose. Since he has 2 PhDs, he won. As we eat, I find myself observing my grandfather and mother like I'm a scientist, an Ellie version of Galileo. For one thing, our whole seating arrangement is different. When it's just my mom and me, we sit next to each other. But my grandfather sits at the head of the counter like he's the king. Then there's the way they talk to each other, or rather, don't talk to each other. My grandfather grills my mom with questions I can tell she finds annoying. Does she still have her college transcripts? Would she like to meet with a friend of his in the Stanford biology department to talk about the program? Would she like his help in applying? She answers him the first few times, but after a while she stops and just looks at her plate, the way a teenager would. I have a sudden realization. Even though my mom's a grown-up with her own life, my grandfather still treats her like a kid. After we finish dinner, I pass out the fortune cookies. My grandfather doesn't look very happy when he reads his fortune. What does yours say? I ask him. You are going to have some new clothes, he says. Not a bad idea, Dad. Maybe we could get you some clothes with a little style. You look like you sleep in the old man department. I can drive you to the mall, my mom offers. There's nothing wrong with my clothes. They're brand new. I just bought them a few weeks ago after I turned young. To me, he says, I had to because I shrank. Then he turns to my mother. But now that you mention it, I do need to borrow the car, Melissa. My mom chokes. Borrow the car? I thought you gave up driving. He gives her a look. Things have changed, and I have an errand to run. Well, you can't drive my car. You're not old enough. He sits up to his full height. I certainly am old enough. Would you like to see my driver's license? Dad, she says, her tone placating. What would happen if you got stopped? You don't exactly look like your driver's license. She's right. With his zits and his long hair falling out of my ponytail holder, he barely looks old enough to get into a PG-13 movie. I won't get stopped. I remember how you drive. You always try to pass from the right lane, he says with a groan. She says with a groan, I get more swing that way, he says. Simple physics. You're going to end up in an accident. His gaze hardens. Accident? You want to talk about accidents? Who was the one who wrecked the Volkswagen? Who wrapped it around a tree? It wasn't my fault. It was raining. The road was slick. It was dark. I had just paid that car off. They stare at each other like bulls in the ring. I need to borrow the car, he says. My mom won't let him borrow the car. Do you have any idea how many times she borrowed my car? He rants on the bus ride to school. He's furious. Why don't you just ask her to drive you? I suggest. She won't drive me to the lab, he says. That rent-a-cop told her he'd press charges if he saw me on the premises again. Oh, I say. I see his point. But on the bus after school, his mood is completely different. He seems almost happy, excited even. When we reach our stop, he doesn't get up. Come on, this is us, I tell him. He doesn't move. We're getting off at a different stop today. We are? Where? His eyes gleam. My lab. Oh boy. So Grandpa Melvin is taking the bus stop or the school bus to his lab so that he can get in there to get his things because Ellie's mom will not lend him the car. I can't wait to see what happens. I wonder if the cops will be there and he'll get in trouble. But we will find out on Monday. I hope you guys have the best weekend. Do your work. Have fun. Stay healthy. Wash your hands. Keep a safe distance from other people. Bye.